Hey guys, what's up? This is Wilsfer with Abysmal Hymns, and I am back with Reza Mills. And as promised, this week we're going over our top five darkest songs. I've noticed as I was sorting through this, there were some songs that I'd considered, and then certain elements would creep up, and I'd be like, eh. Like I thought about I Love the Dead by Alice Cooper, but he gets into some kind of jazzy stuff there and he lightens the mood a little bit. Um, and then there was one song that we've talked about before that I was like, well, I shouldn't include that one, but every time I like tried to replace it with another song, I was like, no, I have to go with this my first thought here because that's the right one. But so there's a lot of elements lyrically for me that's important. I think the mood and tone as well as the sonics all play a part in what creates dark music. Obviously minor keys are important. So there we go. So it's gonna span for me, and I know for Reza too, it's gonna span a lot of different genres, from industrial to post-punk to metal, some of the more expected ones. And for me, you'll probably get a lot of the people that you're predicting that I would probably say. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
All right, yeah. So absolutely, I agreed with everything you said about there. For me, the whole concept of darkness, it's the emotion that's behind it, it's the vibe that's created. All these elements come together, minor keys and that sort of thing. And I've tried to span the decades really that I can think of with my selection. So yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. Should be interesting.
Cool. Well, why don't you start us off?
All right, so let's go back to 1973. I'll start with 1973 and Roxy Music and their song In Every Dream Home a Heartache. It's funny really with Roxy Music because they were sort of labeled glam-ish, but they're about as far removed from bloody awful bands like Slade and Wizard and all of that silly sort of more over the top stuff. There was a definite art school mentality here. Of course, best known for Brian Eno and Brian Ferry. And this was from their second album, For Your Pleasure, Eno's last record with the band. It's just a really creepy track. Brian Ferry almost just talks his way through it. It's got like a sinister monologue. I'm just reading my notes. It's a critique of the emptiness of opulence, and it's partly a love song to an inflatable doll. So, all right, fair enough. And yeah, I always loved this one. I was particularly blown away by what's he called? Ros Williams and Gitane Damone's interpretation on their one of the records that they collaborated on in the mid 90s. They did a really haunting version too. So yeah, I've always been a huge fan of this, and it's not for nothing actually that apparently it's provided the soundtrack for documentaries on the likes of Dennis Rader, who, if you don't know who that is, he's a guy called BTK, not a particularly nice man, as you can expect, and it feels somewhat appropriate for someone like that too. So yeah, I love this tune, and it's for the reasons given, it's why it's my number one uh, in today's selection.
Cool. Yeah, I mean that one works for me. I'm a huge Roxy Music fan, but it's interesting because it's not the typical Brian Ferry vocal that you're expecting. There's not a lot of the type feel to it.
Yeah,
So, he's singing in a little lower register. I can appreciate, and it's interesting too, the whole serial killer thing.
yeah.
Because particularly with BTK,
Mm.
he was the facade of just a, scout leader and prominent figure in the church when he had this whole secret life going, and that's kind of what this song conveys to me. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, I mean, not literally BT, you know,
Yeah.
that guy, bind, torture, kill, but
Yeah.
where there's a lot of metal bands that have blatant songs about that guy. I think this gets the point across a little better.
I think so. And, I just feel like metal, as we know when we've been doing these shows, you're a lot more into it than I am, although I still enjoy some of that stuff. But for me, it's songs like this that feel creepier and more eerie rather than just, I don't know, um, say Church of Misery, is it? That Japanese doom band doing all their songs about, serial killers, which is fine, it's okay, but kind of a bit goofy at times. Whereas this really cuts to the quick and the darkness that surrounds that. And I think for that reason, yeah, a far more effective job, at least for me personally.
Right. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Well, I guess kind of in the same, well, a little few years later, I'm going to start in 1982.
Hmm.
And this is with a song that we've talked about before when we talked about this artist. Um, and it was the one where I was like, well, maybe I could use Meat is Murder by the Smiths instead. But when
Mm.
I A-B'd them against each other, this song went out. And so here we go. So my first pick is gonna be off the Pornography album, 100 Years by The Cure.
Yeah.
Just because that guitar is so harrowing.
Oh yeah.
Um, and the like production, the lyrics, yeah, it's about as dark as goth gets, and not even intentionally, I don't think. It's just what came out. I don't think Robert Smith ever set out to make dark music. That's just what came out.
I'm fairly sure around the time of the Pornography album, a couple of things. I think number one, I think there were always rumors of, people say, oh, is he going to do an Ian Curtis? Because obviously it's not exactly the happiest of records, along with Faith. And then there was, but you can also see why, after doing an album like this, he would then leapfrog to doing something as ridiculous, albeit fun, as say Love Cats. Because, you needed to inject a little bit of fun into proceedings, I would say.
Right, and I almost think it sometimes with Love Cats, they're like making fun of themselves.
Yeah,
That's him. I'm sure he was completely drunk, but it was he got the idea to maybe not take this whole thing so seriously because it probably wore on him.
yeah.
Um, stress does that. So, yeah, and I mean, also maybe he's bipolar or something like that because you can go from one kind of carefree, happy thing to something like this. So,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love it. That's a terrific record. Yeah, I can't really disagree at all. And that's a fantastic song. I'm trying to remember actually if remember that band AFI. I'm trying to think if they covered this. I know that they have covered The Cure quite a bit, but
I don't know about this one. There is
yeah.
somebody else that I have on this list that covered this song,
Right.
so I'm not going to say their name right now, but
Okay.
at the end I will. They're the last choice, so
Ah, fair
we'll come
enough.
back to it.
All
And I
right.
think they did it in collaboration with that band, Shoo Shoo.
Right. Okay. Oh, is that Shushu what XIU?
Yep,
Them, yeah.
yep.
Covered their album earlier this year, I think actually.
Yeah, it's not on that album, but they did a cover on it on another one of these collaborative
That
things
how
that they did.
I've always wondered how you pronounce that
I
band's name.
always said Shoo Shoo,
That
but it's not
I was
Zoo
like
Zoo.
you or whatever that is. Yeah, they're a good band anyway. But yeah,
Right.
nice. Cool. All right. So, I'm going to 1977 and one of my favorite bands, Suicide, somewhat appropriately named considering the themes we're discussing, and their self-titled debut. But the song I'm going for, oh my God, Frankie Teardrop, 10 minutes of unbelievably unremitting bleakness and terror. Um, I played this for my partner actually the first time a couple of months ago. She was like, "What the hell is that?" She was actually very disturbed. It's not a happy song at all. It's a 20-year-old husband, father, and a poverty-stricken factory worker who comes home and essentially murders his whole family, murder-suicide, and then the narrative follows him into hell. But it's the instrumentation is yeah, it's pretty effective, but it's Alan Vega's ha absolutely. I mean, I mean, his screaming on this song. I mean, it could put any black metal band vocalist to shame because it is. The first time I heard it, I think I almost jumped out of my skin. It was so terrifying. And honestly, I recommend anyone if you want a good scare, right? Midnight tonight, or just before you go to bed, or just put this song on, turn all the lights off. Let's see how far you get. I love it. I just love it for that reason. So yeah, Suicide and Frankie Teardrop.
Oh yeah, that one works for me. It was a little more, I've used to have the Suicide albums, and that one was a little more minimalist in places than I remember it being, but I think
Yeah.
it does get the point across. And those guys were way ahead of their time and doing their name doesn't get brought up a lot when you're talking about like proto-industrial or proto post-punk and that type of thing.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, so they're if you don't know Suicide, check them out.
I
They're pretty
I
important.
I put them in like a triumvirate of that in proto-industrial. So if you like Suicide, check out Chrome, check out Cabaret Voltaire, Throbbing Gristle, well, Quintet then, or Quartet, sorry. Check out those four bands. But Suicide, I definitely, if you want the bleaker side of things, then they'll fulfill that role perfectly.
Yeah, see, Throbbing Gristle, they always struck me as like the noise version of Sid Barrett era Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
I just
it's
love the audacity of calling your first album 20 Jazz Funk Grades. Where you just know that there were probably plenty of people who liked that music and that would have been furious, going with buying that title, buying that album based on that title. I think it's absolutely hilarious. But it's a good record too. Definitely check them out.
all right. I'm going to skip up only 2 years to 1984.
Hmm.
And this is a alternative, I guess pre-alternative, because alternative music really didn't become a thing till the 90s. These guys kind of were a forerunner of that and like indie rock. And, there's kind of a happy slant to a lot of their music, particularly their first album. But this one is kind of a parody of a country song. But once again, it's another song about killing your family. This time, this guy's gonna kill his children, and it's Country Death Song by the Violent Femmes.
Nice.
Um, yeah, there's some happier chords on it, but the way that they're played and the way he's singing it is a little more serious than some of his vocal performances. Gordon Gano is an interesting character. Um, and it stands out. The whole Hallowed Ground album is a lot darker than what you would expect from them.
Yeah.
But this song stands out in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyone who's listened to it's a self-titled debut, isn't it? It's been a while since I listened to them. Um, will probably think it's obviously such a change in tone for this particular track because I don't think the rest of the album sounds like this. It's quite a long track, and it's just so good to see like them to go from stuff like, I don't know, Add It Up or something like that, which is just this. I don't know what you call it, folk punk, I guess, acoustic folk punk, maybe, to this really moody sort of post-punky uh, slice of darkness. Yeah, brilliant. Can't really argue with that one.
All right, what you got next?
All right, so I don't know if you're overly familiar with these guys, and I actually saw them a week or so ago in Manchester, the band Magazine, and this is a track from their second album, Secondhand Daylight. And I mean, everyone in this band is a pretty much an exceptional talent. I'm a huge Barry Adamson fan, particularly, but the track I'm going for is a number called Permafrost, which is just this really creepy, slow moving glacial type song. Easily as good, in my opinion, as anything that the likes of Joy Division put out before, well, around the same time, I guess. And yeah, just very atmospheric. Some of the themes of it, it's basically considered to be their magnus opus of gloom, and it kind of the lyrically and musically it kind of explores fatalism, regret, cold and isolating dread, all that heartwarming sort of stuff. Barry Adamson's very sparse bass playing as well really adds to that creeping tension too. So, and if you've ever seen pictures of these guys, I mean, it's something very eerie and creepy about them. Like such unlikely collection of characters. I mean, Barry Adamson's a black, well, has this huge afro, he's a black dude, and then you had Harold Devoto, looks like an alien, and you got this lanky Scott in the band with this silly haircut. Honestly, the most oddest collection of people you've ever seen, making this very weird, sometimes so pervy, dark, sinister music. And I think Permafrost is, for me, the best exemplification of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with magazine, but for some reason I've always filed them in with like the Talking Heads as more of
Hmm.
like a new wave band, but they kind of bridged new wave into what would become indie rock. There's a lot of those elements involved, but I like this song a lot, and I was surprised that it was a little more post-punky. So
Yeah, well, I
I'll
know
have to
that.
check that album out.
Yeah, you mentioned indie rock actually. Interestingly, I think Radiohead are big fans of Magazine, which I mean, I don't like Radiohead at all, but I can hear elements of that and sort of forget what an impact they had, despite what they were around for what 5 years, not very long at all. So, and incidentally, mentioned Barry Adamson. I recommend you check out some of his solo stuff if you haven't already, because that continues that sort of darkness, at least on some of his earlier solo work. So,
Cool. Yeah, I'll check it out.
cool.
So my next song is from 1992. It's that industrial band that I was talking about.
Yeah.
I think this is most of their albums are pretty dark, but this one to me stands out. I think there was some addiction stuff going on when they were making this album, and one of the members died
Yeah.
not too long after.
Dwayne.
Yep.
Dwayne.
So yeah, so it's from the Last Rites album. It's the second song, Killing Game by Skinny Puppy,
Hmm.
which, Ogre's vocal performance is very like desperate sounding. There's a pretty piano melody that goes through it, but everything else is like really start.
Yeah.
Um, and lyrically, I think it also kind of fits in with that. I mean, the first song on the album too, almost feels like an extension of it, but this it kind of culminates. So
Yeah, I've got to confess I like Skinny Puppy, but maybe like you and Magazine, they're not a band. I've kind of dipped in and out of their work. I mean they're quite prolific. I think they've put out quite a few records, and I know that Vivisect album quite well, but I need to really do some proper investigation. I'm aware that they are quite a I guess conceptually quite a dark band, as you mentioned, drug issues and various other things too. So definitely one I need to dig into more because what I've heard anyway, I've always enjoyed. It's what's he called? Nivek Ogre, is that how you say his name?
right. hmm
Yeah, him and yeah, talented dudes, yeah.
I would say start with Last Rites and work your way backwards. From that, go to like Too Dark Park. Those are
Sure.
fairly Too Dark Park's kind of like the yin of the yang of this album.
Hmm,
Sonically very similar, but Last Rites is noisier, where Too Dark Park is more song focused.
cool. Yeah, absolutely. I know that they inspired, do they inspire Ministry, I think, or
Yeah, I mean, so they were kind of in their first doing this sort of thing. So bands like
Hmm.
Ministry and I guess what we typically think of industrial music now.
Sure.
Um, yeah, you could definitely say they influenced. I mean, Nine Inch Nails is a little more streamlined and
Yeah.
pop oriented than what Skinny Puppy does.
Yeah, because I think what I remember, they kind of remind me of a band like Frontline Assembly. It's quite dense. It's not like you're not going to get those big hooks and choruses that you might with Nine Inch Nails or even Latter Day Ministry, hasten to add. It's definitely you need to put a bit more work in. Let's put it that
Right, right. It's a little more like the White Album.
way. Yeah, absolutely.
They're more, and funny enough, I mean, there are some references to Charles Manson throughout their career.
Ah, that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to change tack in terms of genre, and I'm going to go to some grunge. One of my favorite groups alongside Soundgarden, the band Tad, and I'm going for a track called Jinx, which was from their album Eight Way Santa. I think that's what it's called, from what I remember. And they're always one of the more darker sounding Seattle bands. Um, Super metal sort of vibe to them. This song in particular has got this very sort of sludgy rhythm to it, but at the same time incorporating a little bit of punk too. And if you listen to the lyrics, I mean, it's kind of going on about sort of sense of paranoia, and it's not like I think sort of Tad Doyle had some personal issues from his childhood and what have you, and the chorus's refrain is "I'm a drinks, but bad luck follows everywhere." And if you know the band Tad's history as well, that certainly unfortunately seemed to be the case with them. So yeah, really, really cool. I always found their lyrics to be a bit more interesting than what I don't know Eddie Vedder was putting out, and the music was a good deal heavier and but also very, very well composed too. So yeah, that's my next choice, Jinx by Tad.
Yeah, I would always think of Tad as kind of like one of the forerunners of sludge.
Yeah,
Um, this song was certainly interesting. You know, Tad's another band where I've kind of thought of them more along the lines of the Melvins.
yeah.
Um, and I've saw them live once. I think they're opening up for Guar.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I mean they're good at what they do, and I think this song definitely gets that point across.
Mm,
Um, it wasn't necessarily what I expected from them going into it. Most of my listening of this band it came when I was working in a record store in the 90s and this type of thing was coming out and I would get promos and just, give everything a listen once. So yeah, but I mean I like what I heard on this one with the track you sent me, so I can
ab-
understand why you picked it.
absolutely. I mean, so many amazing tracks on this record too. Stumbling Man, if you want a song that's even heavier too, and things like that. Yeah, just a very, very underrated group. So everyone should check them out.
Cool. I like what I heard with that one. So and I'm gonna kind of go on a more of a metal side. Well, I guess about as metal side as I'm gonna get on this list. This song came out of a compilation in 1994 called Nativity in Black, which was a Black Sabbath tribute album
Yeah,
where all these metal bands covered Black Sabbath songs. And so these guys obviously took it on themselves to see if they could make the song darker than the original, and I think they succeeded. Um, it is and it's interesting because you would think that they picked the title track from the first album, which is the eponymous Black Sabbath song.
Mm,
You would think they would have played it straight because it already goes with what they do, but instead they took it a step further, and that is Typo Negative's cover of Black Sabbath, where it's slowed down. Peter Steele is like way up on the mic, just kind of croaking in his lowest voice, the lyrics,
yeah.
until they get to the part where it speeds up at the end. Which I think they conveyed it all pretty well and captured the spirit of the song, but took it in a more Halloween-y direction.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great record anyway. I mean, tribute albums can be a mixed bag, but so many killer covers on there, and that Typo Negative one, Typo Negative are one of those bands that I don't know if I mentioned this before. I mean, I love Carnival because of the crossover thing, but I've always kind of I like Typo Negative, but I don't know, something about what they do doesn't always draw me in. But I really enjoyed this cover. Kind of reminds me of what they were doing maybe on, say, Slow, Deep and Hard, maybe the vibe on there, or on the sort of slightly heavier carnival songs like Jesus Hitler. So for that reason, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. If I was going to suggest any typo negative album, I think that actually October Rust is their best. But it's kind of more progressive and more gothy than Bloody Kisses, so you have to be up for that.
Oh,
But yeah, if anybody's going to start off with those guys, that's the one to go for. Even though Bloody Kisses has the more recognizable songs.
of course.
Um, I just think it's better produced, and they just kind of got what they were going for right on that one. So, not
Yeah,
that they
my
ever got
part.
it wrong. It's just that
No.
that's like the most fully realized version of what they do.
I mean, my partner's a huge fan of Typo. I mean, yeah, she's been following them for donkey's years, much to her kids' chagrin, who they listen to K-pop, so it's a little bit different. But she's a huge fan, and so I think she's trying to get me into them a bit more as well. And I really do want to appreciate them more, but I think I'm going to have to invest just a little bit more time with them, even though. I love Slow, Deep and Hard. I do think that's a fantastic record, but yeah, need to do a bit more work yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's more vocal production, I think, on October Rust.
Yeah,
Which that's what sticks with me. There are more layers. It sounds great through headphones.
yeah.
Um, so there you go.
Wicked. All right, so I'm going to keep it metal, albeit of the drone variety. And I've gone for a band that, I've kind of had a love-hate relationship with them, even though I'm a huge fan of Greg Anderson and Southern Lord. And I'm talking about Sun O. I remember seeing these guys live in my God, was it 2014, 2015, and being unbelievably bored throughout. It's expecting a lot of action at Suno. You're going to be very disappointed. But the album I'm going for that I'm a huge fan of is Black One. And the guys have always had this love of black metal, especially Greg. And I love this record. It's really, really, it's got some dark ambient qualities there. It's really, really eerily put together. I think one of the songs was recorded with one of the guys, one of the guest vocalists being locked in a casket. So yeah, you don't much get much darker than that. But the song that I've gone for is "It Took the Night to Believe," which is I'm trying to think what it reminds me of actually. It is very much rooted in the ethos of black metal, as I mentioned, but it also I think sort of takes like nods to like some of what Earth were doing early on, perhaps maybe Joe Preston on his Throne side project too. So yeah. Oh, and possibly even the Melvins at points, but given this, as I say, black metal twist. So yeah, that was my final choice. It took the night to believe by Sun O.
Yeah, so these guys are a band whose drony nature has not always, appealed to me as much, but I appreciate what they do, and I liked
Yeah.
this song. This is an exception to the rule for them. Um, I've wandered into when they've been playing live before, and it was just you could feel it more than you could hear it. Which, hey, that's, if that's what you're into.
Yep.
Um, and I appreciate what they do. I think that this, you know, is a song that definitely understands the assignment and gets it right at being dark. So,
Sure, and it's quite frustrating. I find them quite an inconsistent band. Like I love, as I say, I love Greg Anton. I love the band Engine Kid that he was in. I love his Lord solo project. But Sono, I think like we have a magazine in England called The Wire, which is this really pompous, very pretentious muso sort of magazine. It goes on and on and on and just flights of Grail Marcus type fantasy, really quite tedious. And they're the kind of people that sort of go on and about Sun O being the most amazing band who ever lived, as well as that silly man, that Channel the Needle Drop, that ridiculous man as well, who, otherwise his music taste is fairly generic. And Sun O sees Sun O and his life has changed. I'm like, yes, they're not that good. They have their moments, but I think that this particular record is probably one of their finest moments.
Right. So Sono occupies a space that I already have filled by Swans. So
Yeah,
that's kind of where I stand on those guys. But
sure.
I mean, for this song, yeah, it definitely is dark, so
Yep,
it works.
cool.
So here's my last choice. It's going to be the most modern song, which I'm only going to 12 years ago. I'm not 13 years ago actually now, 2013. This is the artist that I was referring to earlier, who covered 100 Years, and this song comes from her Pain is Beauty album. It's Chelsea Wolfe, and the song is called Kings,
Hmm.
which it was hard to pick because this album is fairly dark front to back. Um, so there's a couple of songs I could have picked from this, uh, but I think that this one kind of captures everything in the sonically the darkest. Even though lyrically there might be a couple other songs that she has about like abusive relationships and stuff like that and being depressed that might be a little darker from that perspective, but I think that this kind of encapsulates everything from that album.
I basically, when I played it and I had to listen to it, I thought Susie and the Banshees.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
I was getting very Susie Sue type vocal, the atmospherics, very early, maybe early 80s Banshees, maybe Juju era, possibly. That's the vibe that I got, and for that reason, I was liked what I heard, being a huge Banshees fan. So that definitely appealed for that reason.
It's funny because I interviewed her a little bit after this album. I guess it was for the Abyss album that came out after this one.
Hmm.
And I was like, I started talking about goth. I was like, so what are your favorite goth artists? And she was like, well, I'm not goth. I just wear black. I think that's the only reason that people people say that. And so then I was like, well, what dark music do you like? And she said, well, I like Nick Cave and Susie and the Banshees. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, that's all goth. So I'm not hate to break it to you.
Yes. Yeah. You can't
I
get much.
said, you can keep that line. Robert Smith has been saying it for years. So.
Yeah. What's that Spinal Tap quote? None more black.
Yeah.
Is it?
How much blacker can it get?
Yeah.
Ounces none, actually.
No, yeah. In this case, substitute that for goth,
I
when
mean,
you
it's about death. Death sells. Death is,
yeah, of course.
I
Yeah. Yeah, of
guess
course.
Metallica took that seriously.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, very gothic sound. Maybe even tapping into, may on a subconscious level, I don't know, maybe unintentionally, into maybe what Ross Williams was doing too. I definitely had that vibe for some of his sort of solo work with Shadow Project and what have you. Or maybe by osmosis, I don't know, but I definitely had.
Yeah, so I think the only connection is that they both lived in LA, not at the
Sure,
same time. She lives up in the hills where he was down in West Hollywood. So,
sure.
but maybe it's that vibe that comes through it. Too many people doing heroin in the streets of Los Angeles. You kind of get a vibe. Um, in the
Hmm,
times that I've talked to her, that has not been a band that she has identified with.
sure.
So
Fair enough.
the Cure she has, but she hasn't even. I think she's more into like Dead Can Dance, Cocteau Twins, that type of thing.
Oh, it's no bad thing.
as well as like a lot of trip hop, which you can kind of hear on some of her more recent stuff.
Sure.
You know, the
Cool.
whole Portishead type thing, which I don't think Portishead is goth, but they're
They have a
definitely,
darkness and a
yeah, they're melancholy.
eeriness. Yeah.
They would
No.
not have made this list, nor did they. So
No. Cool.
cool. So yeah, so we avoided, there were some other people I thought about, Silent Hedges by Bauhaus.
Hmm.
Is a nice dark one. I was going through some Acid Bath albums too,
Hmm.
but the metal of what they do, I think it kind of, that's the thing. Like I think sometimes the overt aggression kind of doesn't lighten it, but it takes it in a different emotional current than what I think about as being dark.
And you said acid bath, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and there's also knowing well, I don't know him, of course, but Dax Riggs and the right way he writes, I think there's like an absurdist quality to it as well, or am I
Right, yeah. That
completely
is
getting that
true.
wrong? Yeah,
That's true. I mean, he does have an album, and I was thinking about the song called Innsmouth
right.
off of the Agents of Oblivion
Oh
album.
yeah, yeah, the psych thing, yeah.
Right, which he's talking about the frog people from H.P. Lovecraft, which
Yeah,
is a dark concept, but he gets really like super bluesy with it
yeah,
and starts sounding like there's a T-Rex element to what he does sometimes.
yeah.
And I'm sure if I sat down and talked to him, he would probably bring up Brian Eno era Roxy music at some juncture, but
Can hear that absolutely. Yeah, so it's maybe a bit too absurd, a bit too weird, maybe to be all out darkness, even though
right, right.
elements of that featured. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, Dark is more LSD where he's obviously smoking more pot, but
Yeah, sure.
it's how it goes. I mean, some people can, take those things and make music that sounds like fish. So it's.
It is.
No rhyme or reason. But you guys, thank you for listening to this one. We will be back at the drawing board and come up with some more stuff for next week. Maybe we'll get into genres of music
Ooh.
again. We'll see. But like and subscribe and all that, and we'll see you soon.